Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Krampus. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Well, the day has arrived, so get to check out my live reaction to watching the first episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Starting right now. I'm going to need a minute to gather some thoughts. Well, I suppose this is the part of the video where people will either click off or hit unsubscribe on the way out in a fit of anger, because is it all right to say on the internet that I liked that? It had its awkward moments. It's a pilot, so there's a few points here and there where it's actors acting. You know, they're not inhabiting their characters very well yet. That's the case with pretty much every television show ever made, with very few exceptions. As far as Star Trek pilots go, that was fairly top tier. It looked really good. It just established the premise, the setting, gave us our core little group of characters, had them all learn to be a team, establishes a recurring fun villain that'll no doubt be back several times throughout the course of the show, and probably has a two sides thing going. I can see how various plots can be spun out of this. People who make a living complaining about stuff on YouTube are not going to like the show. They already decided they didn't like the show years ago when it was announced that they were going to make the show. So any of their opinions that they have to say about it are somewhat invalidated by the fact that they've already been saying it's going to be bad this whole time, and it comes out and they find something in it to say it's bad, and okay, or they'll attack Robert Picardo because he said that Star Trek was always woke, even though woke wasn't really a word or a term or a concept back when Star Trek came out, which is not inaccurate. So I don't know what all the fuss about over that is, except for an excuse to try to say that a Star Trek star is attacking the fans. Does it ever occur to you that if you don't like something, you're not a fan of it? If I have any particular complaint about the episode, is that at one point you see in a crowd of students one of those bisected, half white, half black people from the original series, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, which they also had a side character in the Section 31 movie from that species, which doesn't make sense since that Let That Be Your Last Battlefield was all about how those last two guys were the last two surviving members of their ancient species, which had destroyed itself over its stupid, petty arguing over which side of your face is black. But, yeah, I feel like that show seems fine so far. Now, previous shows by the Kurtzman Secret Hideout Company have had relatively strong starts, but, kind of waffled a little bit as they went along. In retrospect, after rewatching it, I don't think Star Trek Discovery is nearly as bad as a lot of us made it out to be when it first came out. I still find Strange New Worlds just kind of boring, playing it too safe as a reaction to all the people complaining about Star Trek Discovery. Picard was ill-conceived and has been still to this point seems to be the weakest series that they've produced with live action. Having the idea of, hey, let's get Jean-Luc Picard back and make a show about it. Okay. And then what? Did they really have a story to tell with that was really worth anyone's time? No, it was just a bunch of farting around. The cartoon series, I think, have done better in maintaining their own internal consistency and vision, because since they're an animation department, they're more compartmentalized from the studio meddling and the constant hedging their bets with things with previous seasons of the other live action shows, where halfway through they start hearing fan reaction. Most of this fan reaction is negative, and it causes them to second guess themselves, and then that's in part why you get these kind of wobbly mid-season turns in some of the seasons of Discovery. And Star Trek Picard probably suffered from it the most of all. But I feel like that was a satisfactory opening chapter for Starfleet Academy. I'm interested in watching more of it. It has a tough road ahead of it, though, not because of its inconsistencies or problems with it. It seems fine. But it is going to have some problems with the fact that there are all the things that are built into it that the people who complain about things for a living on YouTube are going to take issue with, even though they're non-issues. This show is not pissing on the grave of the white man or anything ridiculous like that. It's supposed to be diverse. Oh no, they're having a Klingon character who's a little different from other Klingons. How terribly original. There's gonna be a lot of much ado about nothings about this show, because there's gonna be a bunch of people who are on a quest to cancel it just to cancel it. And as much as I myself have had problems with the Alex Kurtzman era of Star Trek, there's always been the hope that at some point they will finally figure out what they're doing and find the right balance of things to make a Star Trek show that doesn't feel like a little bit of a strain to make myself sit through. And this show might be that. Don't know yet. All I'm going off of is just having watched the first episode pilot. Not even the second episode they went ahead and released. I guess I'll probably watch that after this. Because like I said, unlike some of these other shows that they've made, I think I actually liked this one. So of course this will be the one that gets the plug pulled on it. Because the sword of Damocles is hanging over Alex Kurtzman's head as we speak, because of Paramount's new owners and all that stuff, and wanting to change things up around. To which, on one hand, that might not be a bad thing, but on the other hand, you're taking a big risk of bringing in people who are starting fresh again, who aren't attached to any of the original Star Trek creatives themselves. A whole new crop of new blood who are having to figure it all out again, just as these people are finally starting to figure it out again, having made it all a massive waste of time for everybody. I don't know. Helen Hunt as the captain/chancellor seems like she'll be okay. The main dude Caleb seems okay. The half Klingon, half Jem'Hadar first officer of the Athena actually rather liked her. The annoying holographic teenage girl that's kind of by design supposed to be annoying is actually surprisingly not all that annoying. I feel like Robert Picardo still is able to inhabit the character of the Doctor, and hopefully there will be a little bit more about his backstory kind of teased out, not just dropping Easter eggs about, oh, this chick knows about his time on Voyager and on Star Trek Prodigy and all that. There's still quite a few centuries worth of events that have gone on with the guy, and also what happened to that other version of the Doctor resurrected in the Delta Quadrant in Living Witness. Maybe that could be the premise of an episode. A Doctor's evil twin shows up or something. I don't know. The Doctor's not so evil twin. The Koinian guy, asshole number 2, is probably of the characters they've established in this first episode, the one that I find the most honestly like, we really need this character stereotype in this. But one does have to consider that this isn't just purely a Star Trek show. This is a Starfleet Academy show. In spite of their trailers, I've yet to see anything in it that's too wishy-washy, Harry Potter magical college experience kind of stuff with this. But it's just the pilot episode. They haven't really gotten to what like the weekly structure is going to be like. If there is a weekly structure and this isn't just one long dragged out storyline like they've been doing with all their other shows. I would say that a college Starfleet Academy based series does lend itself to weekly contained bottle episodes like Star Trek used to be. One can only hope. But I guess that sums up my thoughts on it at this time. I guess I can finally start listening to the complaining videos more, since it won't be spoiling anything that wasn't already spoiled by all of its various press releases and pre-production news and all that kind of shit. Just please give it a chance. Like, know it for what it is. It's supposed to be aimed at a teen, young adult college audience, ideally, even though it's going to be a bunch of old dudes like me watching it, because that's what Star Trek is in the modern day. If you're not like just scanning it for things to be upset about and just take it as what it is, it was actually pretty good. Is having one of those guys with the bisected color thing going on canon for Star Trek? Who gives a fuck? It's funny seeing them around. It's a reference. It's things so like, yes, this is the Star Trek universe. If they had nothing that you ever recognized as an Easter egg, then it would just be some random sci-fi show with a bunch of weird aliens that you don't recognize. You do have to have some things in it that establishes it as the Star Trek universe. And so it's good to see these little things crop up, even if, whatever. They're popular, they're recognizable, they're things that have stuck out in the zeitgeist all these decades later for this series that somehow managed to survive the 1960s. I wish they had gotten the rights to use the original music of If You're Going to San Francisco, Wear Some Flowers in Your Hair at the end of the show when they got to San Francisco, as opposed to someone's cover of it. But I've heard worse covers, and it's still better than the opening song from Star Trek Enterprise. Don't know yet what their actual opening credit montage and or theme music actually is, because the pilot episode didn't really have that. So maybe we'll be hearing If You're Going to San Francisco again. We'll see. A reminder of a fallen age. Things were more innocent in this country. Oh well. So I guess I'll probably put out more little reviews or talking about Starfleet Academy as it goes along, and there are more things to talk about as it starts to build up its own sequence of events and catalog of characters and events and things that changes, and finding out what exactly it is that's upsetting all the, not to use a term from Dungeons and Dragons misaccurately onto the Star Trek fandom, but I would dare say there are quite a few Star Trek grognards out there that are going to complain about the usual stuff. So anyway, I guess it's time to dig in on that. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Check the description box for a link to Drive-Thru RPG so you can potentially buy yourself a book and support the channel. And until next time.
Da
Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Krampus, and welcome back to Total Party Skills. My review of episode 2 of Starfleet Academy is that it was good. You should go watch it. Give it a chance. What I'm going to talk about here is when I'm starting to label Star Trek grognards, so-called Star Trek fans, basically just YouTube hate critics, who for a variety of factional reasons have taken it upon themselves to try to destroy Kurtzman's Star Trek. An opinion I once shared, but have started to back off from, especially in lieu of this show. After 8 years of them making Star Trek, they've finally made an enjoyable show that I want to see more of, and it doesn't feel like, well, thankfully I got another week before I got to struggle through this again. Like, this is genuinely a good show. But they decided years ago they weren't going to like it. And their entire framework for watching these shows is so stilted that it's impossible for them to not be triggered by a myriad of things that have nothing to do with anything regarding the show's quality. As an example, I decided to watch a video by a channel called Call Me Chato. He's a former Canadian television executive, supposedly, and took actual physical notes of every little thing he complained about. Now, for starters, his review of episodes 1 and 2 of Starfleet Academy was done in the classic style that I have described before, of he basically just listed out all the plot points, summarizing what happened in the episode, but instead of a sarcastic voice, he used a snide voice to describe everything that happened. A few suggestive comments here and there. Well, like I said, I took everything that was an actual complaint and not just something he mentioned happening in the show, because, I mean, that's the bare bones idea, apparently, of what a review is supposed to be. You're not analyzing the show on any level, even on whether or not different types of audiences might enjoy this or not. You're just listing out everything that happened to it, I guess, as proof that you watched it or something, because is that a problem if the people are lying about the shows they're watching or movies? But anyway, his actual complaints in order. Took 2 pages because he had 2 episodes to cover. He right off the bat complained about Tatiana Maslany as a white mom and her Latino son. Complained about her being a single mother, no father figure, and bitched that there was some clumsy foreshadowing. Yes, the very first 3 minutes of the show, 5 minutes, however long it is, where you're getting Caleb's young child backstory before they jump forward in time to him being a teenager, is probably the weakest part of the entire first episode in my estimation. So, I mean, just grit your teeth through it. It'll be over in just a few minutes when you first start off the episode 1. But it'll be over soon, and it gets better a lot faster. As I said in my previous review, there are moments where these actors are still getting to know their characters, so here and there you can tell that this is an actor delivering dialogue and it doesn't really feel real. But that's been the case with pretty much every Star Trek show when they start off, so ease off. All things considered, they're doing a great job out the gate, especially for a pilot episode. He made a deal out of Caleb being beaten up by the guards on the shuttle at the beginning, and called them Federation guards, which is a sign that he wasn't really watching it properly, because those are actually Torathan guards, or however they're pronounced. For some reason, the costume department is trying to make Holly Hunter look like trash. What? Holly Hunter's not hot enough for you? Fucking weirdo. There's too much interspecies interbreeding. Like rabbits, he said. He tried to pawn it off on just trying to rip off Spock because he was half human, half Vulcan. But also there's B'Elanna Torres. But really, I think that in some ways the presence of all these multi-mingled interspecies characters in Discovery and in this series is because in Star Trek Enterprise, amongst all the stuff going on with their temporal Cold War shit and that one ensign who was actually an agent from the future, when Phlox got a hold of him and was studying his DNA, he found that he actually had a bunch of different ancestry from different alien races on top of being mostly human. So, I think that's all that is. That is a reference to Enterprise, which everyone is pretending to like now, despite the fact that no one watched it at the time. Let's see. He doesn't like that they're establishing the backstory for the main character in such a front-loaded fashion at the beginning of the show. We're just supposed to cut to a hard starship where we know nothing about anybody, and we tease people's characters out in singular episodes as we go along. Which I guess was the case in the original series, and somewhat with Star Trek Enterprise. And while they might have been light on flashbacks with Deep Space Nine and Voyager, there was a lot of effort to like pre-establish who a few of these characters are. Just like in this show, they haven't done that with everybody, but with their two main characters, the school chancellor and the main kid that we're following as an audience through learning what Starfleet Academy in the 32nd century is going to be. Is it the Artful Dodger or whatever that Charles Dickens orphan thief character going to Starfleet Academy? Like, there's not a trace, aside from Jet Reno being there, of like any gay characters. There's no trans characters that I've noticed. It is a diverse cast racially and gender-wise, but those have always been goals of Star Trek. I wish there was more just regular humans, and there weren't quite so many alien half-breeds in the series in terms of main characters that they're featuring. They might be leaning too much on the alien. Part of the point of Star Trek is you're supposed to be showing a future of international cooperation, because that's why Star Trek has a diverse cast. It's because Starfleet is an international organization on the United Earth, and so therefore it's not only going to be recruiting people from Europe and North America. So I'm sorry, but that kind of shit is like the last thing that should bother you about Star Trek. Also, all the old demographic trend lines that the UN used to put out that are probably all invalid now at this point, because the culture has changed so radically and weirdly in the last few decades since they started putting that sort of shit out. Like the balance levels between the major races of humanity are going to be different in 1,000 years, no matter what. So what exactly were you expecting them to do? I have visually laid eyes on white male actors in the show. It's not the main character, sorry. They got a guy who I guess by the look of him is an Afro-Latino dude in Ancestry playing the main cadet. Sorry. Are you sure you guys aren't racist? All this time saying that it wasn't about race things, you just don't like Mary Sue's and like girl bosses and shit. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, establishing the backstory for the main character apparently was not good. Says there's no respect for physics in the show, which has been a broad brush problem with J.J. Abrams' Star Treks in particular, and to a lesser degree to Kurtzman's ones. I can't entirely invalidate his comment on that. However, considering that there is the context that this is the 32nd century, the ships being even more maneuverable and being able to zip around, and the shuttles and the materials they're using to build shit being more durable and able to take impacts without the entire ship exploding, or as something that gets on here later at the beginning of episode 2, complaining that the Athena wasn't all trashed up at the beginning of episode 2 after it had landed in Starfleet Academy. Once again, did he actually watch this, or was he actually really paying attention to this? Because from the multiple references throughout the episode, including the main crux of the dilemma they're having to escape from at the very end of the premiere pilot episode, is involving programmable matter. Like, they repair shit faster, especially some surface damage to the outer hull and all that kind of stuff. So it's not terribly unrealistic that the Athena didn't look like wrecked shit when it landed in San Francisco. He didn't seem to like that the two main characters are reluctant heroes in terms of Nayla Ake and Caleb Mir. With Ake in particular, there is a more, I guess you could say, left-wing fantasy of wanting the leader who doesn't want the power, and the power is thrust on them against their will to some degree, because that makes them more trustworthy, because they weren't power-seeking and ladder-climbing. Let's see, complained about the huge sets and the high budget, complained about the half Klingon, half Jem'Hadar first officer on the Athena, referring to her as a chunky woman, which somehow, I guess, deflates the military discipline that she was otherwise introducing into the show that he so desperately craved, but was ruined by her chunkiness. Complained about the sensitive Klingon. That seems to be a pretty common talking point already, which you can pick up from the commercials without actually watching the show. Complained that it's up to the kids to save the day. Yeah, it's weird how the first episode about a show about kids going to Starfleet Academy would have a scenario erupt where the main kids all have to team up and learn how to work together to save the day. Weird, right? Complained about, I guess maybe not complained. I guess we'll go with complained. He complained about the "If You're Going to San Francisco" song by saying it was the producers trying to communicate to the audience that this is hippie Star Trek. Are there any old Star Trek people watching this who can see some of the ironies here of calling Star Trek hippie Star Trek in a derisive manner? Once again, this fellow who's at least 10 to 15 years older than me and was a network executive at a television station and is making videos about how good or invalid the premiere episodes of Starfleet Academy is, seems to think that original series Star Trek in the 60s wasn't something embraced by hippies. All right. And then he basically summed up the episode pilot as "everyone suffers and there's no fathers." I guess that's to sum up because Holly Hunter's Captain Ake had a son that died in the burn. So, oh no, traumatic events in our backstory in this galaxy where people are zipping around on ships that are constantly exploding or being eaten by giant space amoebas who are devouring whole star systems and stuff like that. It's weird how people who have missing parents in their lives in this setting. Let's see, so episode 2... I started off once again with the Athena observation that I already mentioned, that the USS Athena wasn't all trashed up after it landed in San Francisco after being blown to bits by Nas Bakra. He complained that there's too many extras. Maybe not a complaint, but he was apparently amused that Holly Hunter's line about bed making seemed like a reference to Jordan Peterson. Asked what is the point of the Academy if the War College exists? What is the point of Starfleet Academy for Star Trek if they have a War College? Do I need to explain why Starfleet Academy is preferable to Starfleet having a War College? He complained about the psionic wall that the Betazoids are using to protect Beta Z. No mention, I noticed, to the fact that they did make some adjustments to the Beta Z's powers. Another sign of not really paying attention, or a sign that this dude is not an actual Trekkie, or a Trekker, or whatever fucking bullshit you want to call yourself, is not a real Star Trek fan.
A real Star Trek fan.
Because a real Star Trek fan that's the thing that they would pick up on and complain about, is that they've changed the fucking Betazoid's powers. But I'm okay with that, because having full-blooded Betazoid characters in your show, or especially having it set up where the Federation capital is going to be on their planet, is a riding headache. Like, you know how much drama is like undone by having an accurate telepath around who can just casually pick up on thoughts without even having to stress themselves over it. Like, at least Spock had to, like, grab a guy by the face and, like, my mind to your mind shit, be able to access their thoughts. It wasn't just from across the room, or as shown in many episodes of TNG, that, like, they can be telepathic with somebody at great range if they can see them through a view screen and shit like that. Like, it exists a little bit outside of the realm of physics now, doesn't it? And so tapering them down to just being empathic primarily, and maybe being able to be a bit telepathic with each other with practice or with concentration, is more feasible, because it doesn't deflate narrative tension by having characters who can instantly know the answers to pretty much all the problems. Complained that in episode 2, the main character and the guest romantic lead saved the day. This guy was a television executive, right? Was that true? Is anyone able to confirm that? Call me Chateau. And then at the end, summed it up with a rant involving terms like girl bosses and beta soy cucks, and as to how he's describing the cast and characters. He said it's the best Kurtzman Trek because it allows Kurtzman to get away from starships. I did notice that several of the anti-critic YouTubers did seem to have been given early access to watch the show, because they had reviews out when the embargo lifted on reviewing, as opposed to morning of the premiere and stuff, like me. And they pretty much all came out and said negative things. This show's terrible, it's so woke, it's gonna melt your face with wokeness. You're gonna become woke if you watch it. Don't watch it, please. Please, Trump 2028. And, because of all the stuff one does hear about the internal corporate sabotage there at Paramount Skydance, and that the new owners probably don't want Kurtzman and his crew around for their version of Star Trek for multiple reasons, not just ratings. But they're locked in with contracts, and so they have to have excuses to be able to get out of those contracts. And so if they can create the illusion themselves that Kurtzman's latest show is a failure and a flop, and they're going to pull the plug on all this shit, not even let him finish filming the second season, and they're going to dump it all down the tax write-off hole. Well, that's one way to do it, is to make sure that a lot of critics who make their bread and butter off complaining about stuff have access to that stuff. So some of the very first reviews you see, The Critical Drinker and Heels versus Babyface, long-term famous Star Trek nerds right there, telling you all the shit you've already heard before. Which I'm not going to say they're like being paid off by Paramount execs to put out nasty reviews. It's just, you know, they're going to do what they're going to do, because those YouTubers' business models is selling anger and hate. They can't like stuff. Even stuff they do like, they don't really talk about very much. Their whole gig is complaining about stuff and feeding off people feeling disgruntled and making them more disgruntled than they would have been, and holding them in that state of disgruntledness so that they can be milked for super chats and Patreon donations to support the great work of telling you over and over again that Star Wars The Last Jedi was an unsatisfactory experience for you in the movie theater, which you know and you can think. You've invested years into parroting their talking points about all sorts of things in the entertainment world, so because by watching their negative reviews that are mostly just plot summaries, it allows you to pretend to know something about the subject. It allows you to feel like you're informed even without having watched the product yourself. And if they come out and say the show I've been telling you is going to be terrible for the last 2 years is good, well shit, you might unsubscribe from me and take away your Patreon and Super Chat support. Oh no. How will I be able to buy my critical drinks? So I guess in summation, please wake up and stop doing this. Like, give the show a shot. It's actually important that people give the show a shot. My expectations were very low, and I'm on record for saying that, for my own reasons. But I'm willing to admit that, they've well exceeded my expectations. that this idea that's been around since the 1990s, since Brennan and Braga were in charge of Star Trek, is the idea for a Starfleet Academy show has been around since then. And maybe it's a shame that they waited so long to do it. And that it was always going to have a slightly different tone, more young adult, more fun, more Buffy the Vampire Slayer-esque, I guess you could say. I don't know what a more current reference to that particular vibe would be, yeah. They shouldn't have waited this long to make this, is actually, I guess, my ultimate point. And it's just a shame that there's so many people who they're paid shills, but the people who are paying them to shill are their own audiences. And I don't know how to untie that, or convince network executives to stop listening to that. I also blame it for a lot of this political situation we are in, because since normies are so influenced by pop culture, the slow erosion of Hollywood's dominance as being the cool kids in the pop culture that has been accomplished by this decade of YouTube criticism over the Star Wars The Last Fucking Jedi has been quite critical to the undermining of the left by making a lot of left-wing causes out to be uncool by people who are themselves uncool. Anyway, hit like and subscribe. Check the link below to buy a book and support the channel. And until next time. Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Krampus. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I just got done watching the 3rd episode of Starfleet Academy. Right off the bat, we already know Star Trek is dead. This has ruined Star Trek. It's shitting on the legacy of our most beloved series ever. It was a pretty fun episode. I know people make the easy comparison of saying Harry Potter in space, but in some ways the tone and some of the elements of this episode kind of actually reminded me more of the video game Bully by Rockstar Games, establishing, inter-school rivalry with the War College through team sports, which is basically like a fancy futuristic danger room laser tag kind of game they call Calica. Liked it most for the mascots. The Mugatu costume was pretty cool. And as with my reviews for the other episodes, you should watch it so you know what's in it, instead of listening to a YouTuber just give you a plot point summary of it and call that a review, because that's not a review. Once again, elements that have been tonally off-putting in some of the other Star Trek series produced by Secret Hideout actually fit very well for the concept of a scholastic-based academy show. But older and disgruntled Star Trek fans should be warned, this episode does contain a lot of young, attractive people smiling a lot and having a good time. And I know that burns you. It burns you deep in your soul. And you have my pity that you're not able to enjoy that. I'm sure people will complain that the Koinian guy, the wannabe Alpha Chad, ends up taking a back seat to Genesis and lets her be the team lead and all that kind of stuff, culture war, blah, blah, blah. You get a little bit more character development for some of the characters. No Robert Picardo in this episode, but Jet Reno, played by Tig Notaro, did show up again. And apparently she's hooking up with the half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon first officer. So there you go. Even more wokeness confirmed with an interspecies, interracial lesbian relationship. How terrible. As far as the more enlightened sentiment some people have of realizing that, oh, I'm not the target demographic for this, that's fine. In which case, and there's no reason for you to talk about it, or bring it up, or be trying to badmouth it for people who might actually like it, now is there? If you recognize that you're not the intended audience.
Then it's none of your business.
It's just strange how there's all these nerds out there who want to cling to the properties they loved as children, and yet have seemed to have lost all the youthful joy from their hearts. So, whatever. I'm not angry at all the idiot assholes out there bad-mouthing this show. I pity them. They're piteous. It's sad that they can't lower their defenses just enough to enjoy a show that's just trying to be fun. Everything's got to be super serious all the fucking time. As far as its demographic of choice, this seems modeled very much for older teenagers, college-age people, and anyone else who hasn't become a premature boomer, like so many of the people out there on YouTube who are going to be telling you that the show sucks without even having truly watched it. Or they watched it in bad faith because they go into these things looking for stuff to complain about. They don't take it in and mull it over and figure out what was wrong. They're going in with a notepad and are just taking notes the whole time. They're not really watching it. They're not really engaging with it. They're not really thinking about it. They're scanning it for talking points. But I guess that's really about it. There's not a whole lot to say beyond that. 3 episodes in, I'm still enjoying it. I still look forward to more. I recommend people giving it a shot and trying it out themselves. I'm not going to summarize the plot, so you're going to have to find some other channel if you want to pretend to have watched it and pretend to have an opinion, just so you can be a grumpy asshole on the internet about everything, constantly, until the end of your days. This is your life, complaining about things that have changed since you were a child. Good times all around. I look forward to the thoughtful comments about how the show's garbage. Hit like and subscribe. Check links below to support the channel by purchasing yourself one of dozens of TTRPG products I have written. And until next time. Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Krampus. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. This here is the biggest limb to fall off of the biggest tree on the property. Fun times ahead once this all thaws out enough. I actually have to be able to get out here and start cleaning it all up. So I just watched the 4th episode of Starfleet Academy, possibly the best episode yet. There's some solid world building starting to be put in to this series already in just a handful of episodes that supersedes the amount of world building that Discovery managed to really set in place for what the 32nd century of the Federation galaxy was supposed to be. And I'm enjoying it so far. First real character-focused episode around one of the side characters, so we get to know our Klingon doctor fellow, Jaden Cragg. As always, pretty much just a rock-solid episode. If you can't tell, we're in the middle of an ice storm aftermath. Where I'm at, we've had power gone for about 6 days now. As of the recording of this episode, thankfully, a neighbor let us borrow a generator so we can at least keep our Wi-Fi plugged in and run a few things we can plug into a power strip kind of stuff. But still waiting on the electric company to get their shit together and tie up all the last remaining knots. There's still like several thousand people in our area who are out of power right now, and a lot of them in worse shape than we are. So, all things considered, things could be worse. There's a link in the description box below if you want to help out a little bit by buying a book in PDF form, or you can find those books on Amazon if you want the print version. Would be helpful right now. We're having to eat through an awful lot of gasoline, having to survive off fast food, which isn't cheap like it used to be. My dad's going to end up burning through his savings if he ends up having to put 20 gallons of gas into his generator. And so I don't know what help he might need in the future. But all in all, now's the time, seriously, could use some assistance. And in exchange, you get something to read. So I'm not just putting my hand out and you get nothing. So check out those links. be greatly appreciated right now. I guess that's about all there is to say. Hit like and subscribe. And until next time, yeah, I get it. You probably deserve a little bit more commentary than that. Sorry, it's a little hard to think consistently with that droning going on constantly from the generator in the background. So I'm at the much further end of the property now, out in the woods. So, I guess a couple of things. Like, for one thing, this wouldn't be a proper Starfleet Academy review for me if I don't point out that a bunch of the people who are doing the complaining aren't actually Star Trek fans. I mean, like, literally, specifically, not necessarily to viewers, but specifically to the YouTubers who are putting out videos on this subject, bad-mouthing the show. These are channels that know most, with a few exceptions, these are channels that almost never talk about Star Trek. They're not Star Trek fans. It's not their primary fandom. Just liking something doesn't make you a fan. Just casually liking something definitely doesn't make you a fan. They have a monetary incentive to make negative comments about anything that's put out nowadays. If it has anything in it that matches this little list of criteria that they all seem to have developed en masse as to how they're defining signs of wokeness. I heard someone say, I think it was Comics Matter with your boy Zach, make a point of having a realization that a lot of these people aren't really geeks about these things. They're toy collectors. They're adjacent to geeks. They're their own form of geek in a way, but their point of view on what makes these properties good or not is massively different from people who actually are like invested in the stories and worlds and all that from whatever your franchise that floats your boat is. They're the uptight assholes who keep them in boxes and shit, you know, and spends an insane amount of money on them. Like, these aren't really good sources for geek information and geek opinion. And they're trying their damnedest to get this show canceled, which is why I'm just kind of bracing myself for that fact, because I suspect that the part of, the whole buyout of Paramount includes some sort of reactionary desire to change Star Trek and its messaging. Thing is, as I didn't even really realize it until a couple days ago, Skydance that bought Paramount, David Ellison's son or whatever, Skydance also helped produce and finance Star Trek Into Darkness. Like, once again, the idea that these people are going to somehow make Star Trek better by taking it away from Alex Kurtzman and them, just as they finally found a good mix for a type of show based on Star Trek that suits their particular flavor of storytelling in the form of a show for a young audience set out of school. Like, I don't know, guys. Seems a little short-sighted, but whatever. Y'all are going to do what you're going to do, and a bunch of idiots, low IQ morons, to paraphrase Qui-Gon Jinn, people who think they're smart just because they know how to talk, are going to ruin it all. But whatever. That's the world we live in. Bunch of right-wing assholes trying to collectively punish everyone because they got unfriended on Facebook back in 2011, or that their nephew argued with them at Thanksgiving about something, and they saw something on a Facebook group 20 fucking years ago about flat earth bullshit and blah blah blah, horse crap, violent emotional retards, yada yada yada. My oh my, hasn't the last week while I've been off the internet been fun? So anyway, once again, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Check the description box below for a link to go to DriveThruRPG and check out my massive catalog of books I have written. You can either get one cheaply on PDF form, straight through DriveThruRPG, or if there's a title that interests you and you want the physical copy, just go to Amazon.com and type it up by title in the search bar. It should take you to the page. There's too many of them to link all in one description box, so you'll just have to deal with it if that's your choice. And until next time. Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Krampus, and welcome back to Total Party Skills. Just got done watching the 5th episode of Starfleet Academy. I fell asleep early last night, and I'm sure by now enough time has passed that all the usual YouTube critics have come out and said, what a terrible episode this is. Oh my god, the Klingon is gay.
Military students at an academy having gay sex? That's never happened before.
A story centered around Sam, that black girl that they like putting in their thumbnails, and as if to suggest that somehow that just her appearance alone is some sort of indictment about the lack of quality of the show. So yeah, it was a pretty fun Sam-themed episode, reminiscent of a couple things. In some ways, they're trying to frame Sam's character a little bit like Mork from Mork and Mindy, in terms of the way that she has to report back to her superiors back in hologram land and tell them about her weekly experiences and all that kind of stuff, which is a fun nod to an Easter egg that only a few of us old-timers have any hope of even recognizing that for being what it is. The secret star, though, of this episode was Avery Brooks. He wasn't actually there, but Benjamin Sisko was a huge focal point for this episode's plot line, and they did bring in Cyril Lofton to play the ghost of Jake Sisko, or the holographic hallucination of Jake Sisko, subject to interpretation. I guess also technically he could also be in the Celestial Temple himself, because he would be 1/4 prophet. So who knows what the hell happened to him when he finally passed on, but yeah, you know, it's all going to be about the gay Klingon. He wore a skirt. That's never happened in Star Trek before either. Fucking morons. It also kind of reminded me a little bit of the Marvels, which, once again, a whole bunch of people just went out there and started telling everyone that movie was terrible, even though they didn't see it, and they convinced a lot of other people to not see it. So it's a movie that there's a lot of opinion about out there that's based on supposition. One day, just on a lark, I decided to watch the Marvels while searching around on Disney Plus, and much to my surprise, I rather liked it. It was possibly the most comic book movie that has been made for the MCU, even including the Deadpool movies, even down to its zany, complex plot that jumps around, just like in the comic books, and just also in terms of the visual storytelling. And it's that visual storytelling that the Marvels had that is what I'm comparing this episode of Starfleet Academy to, just in terms of some of the on-screen graphics kind of visualizing Sam's thoughts in a way that kind of would make sense, because since she's holographic, her perception of the world around her might include things that we would consider to be hallucinogenic, in the same way that the Cylons of Battlestar Galactica could kind of project an image of a scenery around them to kind of hide from themselves the fact that they're just in this dull gray corridors of a Cylon base star. Instead, they think that they're standing in a forest or on a beach. In this case, it's nothing so extreme, but, you know, like literally a little like light bulb icon goes off when she has an idea, or she's able to visualize musical notes or the words in a book floating up out of her and swirling around her as she's reading it and stuff like that. It's all actually rather interesting visual cues. There's people out there who are going to say this episode is terribly written. Like, what do you even mean by that? That's a pretty vague thing that you can throw at anything, because bad writing is terribly subjective a thing to say. You know, there are obviously instances of things that people pretty much universally agree are shit, and things that people come pretty close to being universal in agreement are great, but coming close to universal agreement is not universal agreement. There are people out there who think Shakespeare sucks ass, and all that other kind of shit. So just saying bad writing is it's just a hollow accusation that can mean anything to anyone. I find the show's writing to be adequate. It's not Shakespeare, but I don't expect that of Star Trek. Actually. Yeah, every once in a while in the past, Star Trek has quoted Shakespeare, But quoting Shakespeare is not the same as actually having the same quality of writing as Shakespeare. You're in a way just piggybacking off of his talent by using some of it in your screenplay for an episode of TNG or whatever. It's impressive to see Patrick Stewart deliver the lines and all that, but it's just an indulgence. Every previous series of Star Trek, for all the highs they might have had in terms of great quality, they also had a lot of episodes that were fucking stinkers. That, like, every time I rewatch Star Trek, I'm very likely to skip over because, like, that one was lame.
Look, Troy's gonna get mind raped again by psychic alien. That's original.
That kind of shit. Really about the only series that had any real consistency in its writing in terms of the quality levels was Deep Space Nine. Like, on its worst days, it was still an adequate episode compared to, like, even late season TNG had its flubs. Masks. Let's not kid ourselves here. The whole reason why people say rose-tinted glasses in a derisive manner is because it means that you're not letting yourself see things clearly for what they are under your current circumstances. These shows were not the monumental works of art that some people are trying to paint them out to have been. And this was a fun episode. You get to know one of the main characters a bit more, carries the timeline forward, and that the most controversial thing about it is that the wimpy Klingon who'd rather be a healer than a warrior is wearing a Starfleet issued skirt uniform and dancing with a guy at a nightclub. Grow up, guys. Like, this has been an aspect of humanity for like at least 5,000 years, judging by all the things our old religions like to harp about. At some point, you're just going to have to get over your squeamishness or find something else to fucking watch and quit bitching about something you don't like. If you don't like it, just ignore it. I'm not over here doing negative reviews about NCIS and Hawaii 5-0 or whatever else. It's a little suspect, actually, that you have channels that are like waiting with bated breath to watch the new episode of these shows as soon as they drop at midnight so they can record a video in the middle of the night and then get it out there early in the morning when the algorithm is fresh. And there's people waking up just waiting to hear someone say that the Star Trek show that they're not watching and weren't going to watch is bad. What a weird gratification cycle everyone's caught up on that side of the entertainment sphere. You people fucking suck. So anyway, check links below, support the channel, hit like and subscribe, and until next time.
Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Grampus, getting over a chest cold, so my voice ain't all that great. Maybe that's for the best. Because episode 6 of Starfleet Academy is quite the nightmare. Right off the bat, secret hideouts, liberal, woke agendas on full display as the show opens up, depicting an act of white genocide, as Caleb Meir is making sweet, sweet love to a young white Betazoid princess, erasing her chance to have pure white babies. Disgusting. Then they depict teamwork between two opposing rival schools going off to try to resurrect a starship named after a Japanese cartoonist. Not a good American cartoonist, no, it's the USS Miyazaki that the students are sent to instead of the USS Walt Disney. Fucking disgusting. Disaster ensues when aliens called Furies, who are apparently some sort of human cannibal hybrid, beam on board the Miyazaki in order to be able to collect some jerky to take home back to their secret space island. And it turns out that they're actually working for Paul Giamatti, a filthy Klingonite, immigrant, scum, who wants to destroy American values. Precious American values. Then a girl saves the day. They had Vulcans reading comic books. An unrealistic depiction of literacy amongst the youth, if I've ever seen one. This show disgusts me. Its woke liberal agenda is everywhere to be seen. It showed the students and the teaching faculty suffering casualties and facing consequences for their actions to resolve this episode's dilemma. A clear and unequivocal affront at the Trump administration. Alex Kurtzman and everyone at Secret Hideout should be dragged out into the streets and shot like protesters in Minnesota. Scum. This show is the sort of bullshit that you get when you let women vote. Disgusting. No. What we need is a real show about strong white male characters like a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Duncan the Tall, a big, strong, strapping, manly, masculine white man. It's so delicious just looking at him. It's the best thing ever. Teaching good, wholesome, conservative values like standing up against tyranny and protecting the innocent from abuses of state power. Unlike that faggot-ass Fallout show, with its racial minorities and a female main character, and the one white guy's turned into an undead abomination. He's probably gay. Everything's gay. And we can't have that. We can't have no gayness. What we need is unrepentant, rock-hard masculinity like a good straight man wants to see in his television shows. No women at all. Gene Roddenberry is probably rolling over in his grave right now, thinking about all this woke diversity, DEI nonsense that they've jammed down the throat of his precious Star Trek. Disgusting. This episode didn't even say anything to condemn the trans shooter in Canada yesterday. They just want to trying to whitewash liberal history so that people don't see them for the murderous, trans, woke, anti-white, woke, libtard, bastard, blasphemers. They didn't even say Jesus' name in this show. Star Trek has been taken out of the hands of Christians. What's next? Are they going to start casting Jews to play the characters? Not in my Star Trek. They would never have done that in the original series. But it's okay. You know what? It's okay, because the Dow and the NASDAQ are up really high. What we should be focusing on is not how bad Starfleet Academy is. We should be focusing on how much money we're all going to be making when we retire with our 401ks, thanks to Donald Trump. We should watch A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because there's no chance that a story written by George R.R. Martin is going to rug pull anybody at any point. It's just good, wholesome, white Caucasian storytelling at its finest, which is not at all what Starfleet Academy is. It's fucking double garbage. Double fucking garbage. So be sure to hit like and subscribe. Check the link in the description box below to help support the channel. And until next time,
Go fuck yourselves.